We all have storms in our lives that cleanse, clear, and convert the aftermath into a rainbow. If you have the right attitude, you can grow and weather the storm. Let's talk about it now over lunch with Stormy.
Today, I'm excited to share lunch with the dynamic Craig Greiwe. He's a branding and business expert who has had a storied career at the intersection of media and cultural marketing, business, and entertainment. He got his start working in the mailroom at Warner Brothers Studios nearly 20 years ago, and today, he is the Chief Strategy Officer for Rogers Cowan PMK, one of the largest agencies in North America. Throughout his career, Craig has led efforts in content marketing, digital, social media, research, insights, and analytics for world-class organizations, some of the biggest. At Rogers Cowan PMK, he leads one of the world's biggest agencies in Hollywood with clients including Lionsgate, DreamWorks, AMC, OWN. This guy's no joke. He's working with Facebook, Johnson & Johnson, and more. So let's get started. Thank you, Craig, for joining me today.
Thank you. That might be the kindest introduction and most extensive introduction. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a delight to be here.
Well, it was easy to do with all those impressive accomplishments and words that apply to you and throw them together all in a really hard to say paragraph. So are you in Hollywood right now? It looks beautiful outside your window.
Yes, it is beautiful. I live just south of Hollywood in Hancock Park, which is a legacy, wonderful historic district right in the middle of Los Angeles.
When the pandemic hit, I was living in Topanga.
Okay.
And I loved it. And then the pandemic hit and riots broke out. And, I'm from Utah. So I thought, geez, this may not be the place to be when chaos hits. It felt like it kind of might not be. So I went home to Utah, tail between my legs.
Listen, Utah is an amazing, wonderful state. It might be the cleanest state in the country, which is something that I think every Angelino is envious of, given the state of our city.
Well, the air needs some work, but it also may be the reddest state, or at least in the top quadrant of the red states. So it's a far cry from Topanga, no matter what county you're in Utah.
That's true. That makes sense. I am thankful to live where I do in Los Angeles, and I love my neighborhood.
I miss everything about it, but except the chaos. So I thought today we get started with just a few, like a lightning round of questions. Super easy. 2 options. You choose one. I'll help us get to know each other better. Okay. All right. So the first one, we'll go pickles or olives.
Pickles.
Pickles. Sweet pickles still.
Every kind of pickle. I have a weird love of pickles. I despise olives, but I will like pickles are my jam, and I'm in for it.
Oh my gosh, I must have had a psychic input for that particular question. All right, aliens or Bigfoot?
Aliens.
Would you want it?
Sorry. I was gonna say, I think the Fermi paradox of whether life exists out in the universe and how is pretty spot on, and so I'm all about it.
It would be weird if it didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you want to get abducted?
I don't know that I would want to get abducted, but if they were asking for volunteers to go live on Mars for the rest of your life and never be able to come back to Earth, I would volunteer. I am obsessed with everything about space and time and history and all of that.
Well, I sit and hope that they'll abduct me.
Okay.
This for the aliens.
If they come for me, I'm sending them to you. I'm going to say, listen, I'm not in for it, but I know someone who is.
I'll send you my pin. So just send them to my location. Okay. Raccoon hat. You have to wear a hat in this one. You have to wear a hat. So do you want like a raccoon's maybe Vikings hat or a MAGA hat?
Ooh, I look horrible in hats, but I don't think there's any choice in the matter on this one. I will be going as some version of Davy Crockett with a raccoon hat.
Okay. Did you find the guy? So the reason I brought up the raccoon hat is the guy that stormed the Capitol in his Viking outfit, right?
Yeah.
Did you find him at all slightly sexy?
No. And I will say, no, stupidity is not sexy to me, no matter how pretty you are.
Okay, my friends and I were on a call, and I know I'll probably get some backlash from this, but we literally had a moment where my friend goes, "Is it wrong that I think he's kind of sexy?" And
I
I
heard
said,
and
"Okay."
saw that out in the ether.
Yeah, it was like, well, I guess if we're going to be honest. Okay, and then if you had to listen, let's be the last one. If you had to listen to one artist, you're driving in your car. This was a question I used on job interviews. You're driving in a car from LA all the way to New York City. You're by yourself. Every moment you're in the car, you have to be listening to music. Who's the one artist you listen to the whole way?
And I'm by myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different enterprise than if you're with somebody and you've got sing-alongs and all these other things.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna
just you.
I'm gonna go contrarian and go James Arthur.
James Arthur, who is that?
He is a contemporary sort of soulful pop artist. I find him to be, he's in the vein of like if Ed Sheeran and Adele had a baby, James there, but he's got some more upbeat things, but it's definitely music where you would listen to it either with a lover or alone as you drive across the country.
Nice. I'm gonna have to look him up.
Yeah, he's amazing. He has a new single with Sigala that I think you'll love.
That's great. So those are my questions. I feel like I know you really well now. Like maybe road trip.
I am horrible on road trips. If that were one of your questions, I am definitely horrible on road trips. If you put me
I'm
in a
the
car,
best.
no, you put me in a car longer than 45 minutes, I start to go stir crazy.
Really? I want to take that challenge. I love road trips. I could be in the car for 8 hours a day before I get grumpy.
Oh, that's incredible. My running joke is that you could put me and a friend in a car for 8 hours and only one of us would make it there alive. It's just the way it's going to be.
Just hold your breath till you suffocate.
Yeah.
That was fun. So I want to talk about, so we have these similar paths, I think, because I did. So where did you grow up? Are you originally from LA?
I am not originally from LA. I've been here 20 years, so I consider myself an Angelino, a native of Los Angeles, although I am not native. I grew up in rural Indiana, backwoods Indiana.
That's where I was born.
Oh, where?
I was born in Hammond. It wasn't.
I know Hammond very well. I grew up in southeastern Indiana, of all places, Mike Pence's congressional district. That's another story for another time. But
I feel you.
If you've ever seen the movie Hoosiers, the town I grew up in is the next town over and is still like that 70 years later. So
you got out of there.
Yeah, listen, there are a lot of incredible things about growing up in Indiana and growing up in the small town that I grew up in. There's a sense of ethic and responsibility and a sense of common decency for other human beings. Like, regardless of the fact that Indiana is not the most diverse place on the planet, I think it's one of the most welcoming places because people come from a shared ethos of what it means to be, or did the last time I was there, which admittedly was 10 years ago, what it means to be human and relate to people on a human level, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, any of those things. And so I'm deeply proud to take that with me. I am also deeply proud to leave behind the endemic poverty, the deep impoverished state that I grew up in, and move to a more culture defining locale and role.
So I love Indiana for those very same reasons. It's true. Like the Midwest right there, there's something really kind and authentic about those folks, like my family that lives there, and they love me no matter what.
Yeah. It's a beautiful mentality that I find that people who are not from places with that don't realize exists. Just the intrinsic nature of I always say, if you plop yourself down on the plane next to somebody from Indiana, regardless of the fact that you will never see them again, by the end of that flight, they will know your entire life story. They will know all about your cousins and your dating history, and they will have been sincerely interested in that conversation the whole time. And that empathy, that understanding for other humans, I'll take more of that any day.
Maybe that is why I love doing this so much and genuinely enjoy it. But you said you left Indiana and went to a place of more culture. I left Indiana and went to Utah.
Okay.
And now I love Utah, but I get to talk about it because I've lived there long enough to, talk about its flaws. But I'm not sure it was more cultured, and Hammond. So Hammond is pretty
Yeah.
urban and, a little impoverished and high crime rate in itself. It's close to Gary.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was more cultured.
Yeah, listen, Hammond's proximity to Chicago and Gary's proximity to Chicago, once they solved for some of the crime issues that were prevalent, there was a joke when the Miss America pageant was held there that it was going to be the first year that the first runner-up stood a chance of getting the crown because the winner was going to get shot. But they've solved for a lot of those
bad jokes.
Those are bad jokes, but they were not inaccurate. Gary had the worst crime rate. I think at one point it was the murder capital of America at that point. But there's certainly, I think, a lot more culture than where I grew up, surrounded on 3 sides by cornfields and by the 4th side by a dirt road and a forest.
Right. Something really special to that,
Yeah.
So I didn't know we shared that in common. But then you went on to college, right? So when you start in the mailroom at Warner Brothers with a law degree, right? Didn't you have a law degree?
The law degree came later. I am licensed, but don't practice. But I started.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I never wanted to be a lawyer. It turns out if you don't want to be a lawyer, don't go to law school. Easier said than done. No, I started working full-time in the mailroom and then in the field marketing program at Warner Brothers while I was in college at USC.
And you start like going over scripts. I read something that you read all the memos that came in. I didn't know what that meant.
Oh, yeah. So, I think at that time, when you have extra time in your hands, that Midwestern sense of I should be doing something with that time, I wasn't just going to sit around. So I went around to every desk and I asked, do you have something for me to do? Do you have something for me to do? Anything I can help you with? And one assistant said to me, listen, this is back when they printed out paper files, right? Nobody does that anymore. You just click and move it. But she said, I've got a file this big. It's, it was probably 3.5 feet tall. She's like, that's all that filing and you don't want to do that. And I said, I'll do it. I said, the only condition is, can I read everything that I file? And if I have questions, can I ask you about it? She said yes. I peppered her with questions for weeks as I filed 3.5 feet tall worth of paper. And by the end of that, I had the deepest understanding for a kid fresh into film marketing that you could possibly get. And she was incredibly nice. And so, a couple of weeks later, when the head of the department asked who wanted to volunteer for a project, I said, I will. And she said, do you even know what that is? And I said, yes. And it dates from this memo to this point to this campaign. And that's, one thing after another. It was really immersing myself in devouring any piece of information that I could make available.
That's so interesting. So my time at Overstock, my previous life was in e-com, excuse me. And same thing, I have a saying, I want to get to some of the things that you say, just your quips, because they're really great. But I have one that just says, raise your hand. I didn't go to college. I didn't have that background. I was a young mother, took the job as a temp. And when people say, how did you do that? First of all, it was a starting company. There was nothing in place. Nobody knew what e-commerce was. We didn't know. And so I literally raising your hand, like, I'll do it. What is it that you need done today? Oh, I see that needs to be swept up. I'll sweep it up. And those movements, I think, are, people are waiting to get noticed. And they'll put themselves out there so much on social media. Yet in a room of people, it's so much harder to take your stand or make your post in person nowadays, that it's almost underappreciated how valuable it is to show up.
People are
in the toilets.
Yeah. People are afraid of failure. They're afraid of failing in front of other people. They don't want to volunteer for that reason. They, and even they have an idea about what they should be doing. But I tell you, cultivating the reputation, as an old mentor of mine said, of being a can-do man or can-do, however you identify yourself, his response was, his uncle was Lyndon Johnson, and he said to me, that's how Johnson referred to people was, you ask them to do something, like, can do, right? Like, I don't know if I know how, but I'll figure it out. Like, there's got to be a book or a YouTube video somewhere. There's got to be people I can ask. But earning the reputation, legitimately earning the reputation of being there for other people, is the first of many steps. I think I agree with you. It's essential to everything you might want to do in life.
What was your next job after the mailroom?
I mean, I was at Warner Brothers then in field marketing and premieres and special events, and then
oh my God, how fun was that? I used to do events. Aren't putting on events just one of the funnest things you can do?
It definitely had its crazy moments.
Doesn't sound like you liked it.
It had its crazy moments. It wasn't as glamorous as I think it sounded from my side. You may have had a better time of it. But I did Warner Brothers, DreamWorks, back to Warner Brothers, then MGM, then Disney, then decided that I was gonna legally blonde myself in law school. So I'm
gonna be in that big office as a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, I thought lawyers look sexy on TV, which is not a good reason to go to law school. and I showed up to law school with a heart-shaped notepad and a pink fluffy pen with
oh my God, how cute.
Just from the movie, and with my first year professor, Jane Ginsburg, the daughter of the Supreme Court Justice. And,
oh, wow.
Let's just say I had a reputation from that point on.
I bet they loved you.
I think the love was begrudging, but came over time.
But you made it. You actually graduated.
I graduated near the top of my class, and licensed, choose not to practice, went back, started consulting for all of my old bosses, eventually founding my own boutique agency, and then merging into Rogers Cowan about a little over 4 years ago now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It has been, I often say, I haven't applied for a job in decades, and it's probably a good thing because I don't know where I would start. Every job I've had has been created for me, around me, or I've worked to create it and embrace the things that I'm strong at. But I'm deeply grateful and thankful for having had those opportunities, for sure.
What was your favorite? Is it what you're doing now, or is there a moment in your past career where you're like, I just felt so good there. I was so happy. I felt like I was making big changes.
I think it's not the jobs that are the favorite for me. It's the projects. I think working with the late Kobe Bryant for several years was an incredible privilege of a lifetime. It's somebody who had just an unparalleled work ethic, incredible projects, transformation from being the world's most famous athlete to one of the world's most famous storytellers, spending time working day to day with Kobe on his books and on his Oscar-winning animated short, Dear Basketball. It was enthralling to be a part of somebody's dream and passion that was going to add so much social good and value into the world. It was a thrilling couple of years and a true privilege and an honor. I think it's projects like that that make me really happy.
Yeah, and thank goodness you did that, right? Who knew that that his impact would become so much more profound? His impact was there, and then with his passing, with that kind of tragedy, it just felt profound for everyone. I think I get the chills, right, when you think of all the things and how much everyone just had him, the most famous athlete. Everybody knew everything he was doing. It's just a great.
Yeah, and he was a good guy. He was committed to the city of Los Angeles and to the betterment of this city, the world around him. He was inspirational. Having his respect meant a lot in everything that I did, and so continuing on that journey, on that path, and working with people like him who have his passions and his dedication to making the world a better place, which sounds very generic but is very real for me. That's my dream.
Yeah. And you have some charities. Hold on. You're on the board of 2 nonprofits, Point Foundation and American Dance Movement. And then you just launched and co-founded Rise Together.
Yeah.
Is that all true?
Yeah. So I am in the Cornerstone Society for Point Foundation. Love it. It's close to my heart. It's the nation's largest scholarship organization for LGBTQIA youth. I can sympathize with that. Growing up deeply poor, not knowing how I was going to go to college, an organization like that would have changed my life. So that's deeply personal. I love the American dance movement, art, anything associated with art. I have zero artistic capability. I'm the only.
You can't dance?
No, I am the only person associated with the American dance movement who cannot dance. But
They love you for your brain.
I love me for my passion and my willingness to try. And then of course Rise Together, which is new but off to a start like a rocket, as they say, which is focused on eliminating zero-sum politics from Los Angeles. I don't know that there's anyone in LA who would look at LA and say, we're on the right track. And yet our leadership has been in place. All but one of city council members has been in elected office for over 2 decades. So they've been on a public paycheck.
They're captured.
Yeah. So it's one of those things to where we need fresh blood. And more importantly, we need to focus on finding and amplifying the common ground that we all have in Los Angeles. The vast majority of people are not the extremes on either side of the aisle. They are the people in the middle. And in LA, so many of us are frustrated with seeing a city that we love cascade into decline when so much opportunity is possible. And so Rise Together is focused on that very premise, that we can all rise together. We can remove zero-sum politics from the equation, that there are solutions that work for everybody, that you don't need to be anti-police to be pro-social justice. You don't need to be anti-people to be pro-development, that you can find a middle ground that the vast majority of people are going to agree with. And it's our goal to help find and amplify those middle grounds and to let the millions of Angelenos who share those positions know that they're not alone.
That is fantastic. What do you mean by zero-sum politics?
Well, I think in LA in particular, and nationally in many ways, we've been conditioned to say that in order for me to have something, it's got to come from someone else, right? So whether, on a national level, when we talk about undocumented or illegal immigration, choose your words, people think, oh, well, letting them in means sacrificing something of my own. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's the same thing when somebody said, oh, letting gays get married is going to somehow impact my marriage. It's not a zero-sum equation. It doesn't work like that. In LA, we're saying, oh, so in order to do good on social justice, we have to hurt the police somehow. We don't. Right? There are smart, common sense solutions that don't require taking from one side to pay the other. We don't have to take out of people's pockets to solve homelessness. We don't have to tear down every billionaire to raise up the poor who need our help. Like, there are ways for everybody to rise together. It's not a zero sum. It's not pulling from one to get something for the other.
And how will you work with the politicians there?
I'd like to replace the politicians.
Work around them, right? Is that part of it? Is to get people aware of folks that are running something for 20 years are actually accountable for the function of it, even if it's a city. Like, balance the books, make the hard cuts. Some of the things the city of LA goes through, and they don't go back to the guts of where the numbers happen. I can imagine tax codes are 3.5 feet, right? Will somebody follow my 3.5 foot stack of papers? And everybody's like, hell no, I don't even want to read it.
I will.
I don't have time, right. You will. So that's where, 20 years in, these politicians are accountable for the budget, the people. And they just don't hold themselves that way. It's a really interesting thing.
No, it's a game of musical chairs. I say that they're not public servants, they're public parasites. And I mean that in LA specifically, right? Like, our city council is the same size it was in 1925. That's stupid, right? It's just plain stupid. And they haven't changed things. These people have been in office. We put in street sweeping. We'll take the basics. We're not getting the basics right. We put in street sweeping provisions in 1983. Think about the billions of dollars of new streets and new developments that have gone in since 1983. Not one street has been added to street sweeping in those 40 years. What? Why? Like, And the answer is, I don't debate that our leadership loves Los Angeles. I'm sure they do. But either they love Los Angeles and they haven't fixed the problems because they're incapable, or they don't want to. And neither one's a good answer. But I believe that the public coming together and getting engaged and being vocal and being activated is what can move the needle. More people voted for mayor in 1949 than in the last 5 mayoral elections. Like,
shut up.
we can,
is that true?
Yes, we can change that. The 800,000 people will vote for mayor for the first time in their lives in 2022 because of the date of the election changing. And that's an opportunity for the people of this city to move around the career politicians who are playing musical chairs for their own personal ambition. And Rise Together is about bringing those people together positively and with empowerment and with the facts that other people would rather hide from.
I don't know if you know or not, but this is super, like, this city government thing is something I just experienced. I just ran for office as a Democrat.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's this story. It's crazy because my brother's the vice chair of the Democratic Party in the county I grew in. It was the reddest. They voted for Trump more than any other county in Utah, which is very red anyway. So all of this, I grew up there. My brother's like, please run for office. We got to inspire people. You knew by the math, a Democrat's not going to win. They're just not. It's not going to happen. But I do it. And I was exposed to the importance of local politics at a level I had never really paid attention to. What the House votes through, yeah, I hear about some. There's a whole bunch of stuff I didn't know about, and I disagreed with much of it in my core. This is where I pay my taxes. And I disagree with their decisions. As the election gets closer, still don't think I'm going to win, but I started thinking, what if I do win? I'm going to walk into a place that is all very much rinse and repeat personalities of 105 people. I think 26 are women, 19 are Democrats. I'm going to get nothing done. I'm going to go be flinging my head against a cinder block all day, every day. But what I learned about the government actually shifted me. Like, I'm not sure, even though Utah's my comfort food, that I'm in the right place. So you pointing out all of these things about this city is super important for people to listen to, no matter where they live. And then all I can say is, I don't know if I'll run again, but I think it'll be in a state where I might win, where I have some like-mindedness going on. And then I think everyone should run simply for the experience of awakening to it. But I actually think you need to run because it's that type of idea of what it is, because it would be hard to tackle. It's turtles all the way down. There's no break in the systemic bureaucracy that is really going on. But if you can take those 3.5 papers and file them, I think you should.
I appreciate that. It's certainly not off the table. Our focus right now is on activating the vast majority of the people in this city who are just disengaged. They don't even know. I mean, when we think about it, not only our city council is just an inherently corrupt institution in that they represent more people than any other city council members in the country. Each individual city council member represents over 300,000 people, diverse, disparate communities that have nothing to do with each other.
What's the average in the country?
The average in the country is 40 to 60,000.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, if you're building a company, you'd never have that many direct reports.
100%. And, there are city council members who were elected with 17,000 votes. 17,000 votes, and you're governing 300,000. Garcetti was elected in his first term as mayor in a city of 4 million people with 220,000 votes. Are you kidding me? Like, the answer is local politics are what impact your day-to-day lives. Ask any Angelino. The average cost for car repairs due to LA's city roads policy is an extra $800 a year to every single person in this city.
That's insanity.
Local politics are important, and knowing and being aware and changing is critically important. And I think that the answer is we all agree about the basics that need to get done. Nobody's going to disagree that we need to have clean streets, smooth streets, sidewalks that aren't cracked in half, the basics. And we're not getting the basics right, but we can.
What do you think about, and I know it's probably all of California, but I know in certain areas where they have cars that are now allowed to park on the street to live in. Like there are certain streets you can park your car and actually live there. You grab your motorhome. I'm considering doing it and just living on the side of the street near Malibu and stuff like that. And then, right outside of Live Nation, if you go down the street from Live Nation, you are in some of the saddest Skid Row. It will break your heart and make you grateful for every time you get to eat a tuna fish sandwich. Because what you see is unheard of it should be unheard of in our country, let alone, Los Angeles. But what do you think about that stuff? Or how do you address that when it's so bad?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, the problem is so bad that it feels to so many people like it's unsolvable. I mean, I know what it's like to be hungry and poor and housing insecure and at times within a day of being homeless. So I know those feelings, and they're horrible, and no one should ever have to feel them. But the problem is solvable. The problem is we're just going about it in the wrong way. We passed Proposition HHH in LA with $1.2 billion to solve homelessness.
What was that? What was Prop HHH?
It was a public funding initiative that raised $1.2 billion in a discretionary fund in the city to solve homelessness. That was enough money to give every single homeless person market rate rent and a stipend for 2 years. That wasn't the right solution, but that's how much money it was.
Right.
We have wasted $600 million of that $1.2 billion and not even made a dent. It's not that the problem's not solvable. We're not choosing the right solutions. We're not preventing, first and foremost, we're not preventing people from falling in. There needs to be a hotline and a resource for every single person in danger of becoming homelessness. It is 10 times cheaper to keep people off the streets.
That's right.
Than to get them off the streets. And then for everybody who wants off the streets, we need to have the options ready, easy to understand, helpful, with all of the resources that they need. But it's not doing what the city did, which is spend $200 million on industrial tents to house 2,000 people for 3 years. You know how undignifying it is to live in a communal industrial tent with 500 other people? That's not a solution. That is LA's idea of a solution. So it's solvable. It's painful. No one should have to experience it, but it's also not as difficult as everybody makes it out to be to solve it. We just have a bunch of people who have no interest in solving it.
That's right, because it's difficult. But the way you just spoke about all of that made me think about your saying that I didn't want to forget to talk about, which is make the safest, boldest decision.
Yep.
And what you just outlined is kind of along those lines. Like probably getting those tents was a safe decision because they thought, well, people can live here. We'll keep them out of the elements, we'll have them all contained. But was it the boldest? Like, was that quick fix really worth a step towards long-term? Was it a quick fix that doesn't sustain?
100%.
So your safest, boldest decision with that 1.2 billion.
The safest, boldest decision is to dedicate at least half of that 1.2 billion towards prevention, right? And I'm telling you, it's got to be as simple as a 711 or an 811 number. If you are in danger of losing your home and you're in danger of becoming homelessness, you call that number and a live voice picks up and helps you through that problem immediately. Whether you're calling on the last day or 30 days out, we are here to prevent people from becoming homeless. That is a bold decision, because a commitment to have a live voice, a commitment to have real caseworkers, but it's all possible. It's all doable. The safest, boldest decision is about weighing the risks, the possible failures, the entire landscape of your decision, and saying, not where am I most guaranteed to make some incremental progress, but where do I have the maximum opportunity and the minimum risk for that maximum opportunity at the economic concept of an opportunity cost curve. The answer is, if we did that, we'd be light years ahead of where we are. The problem is, everyone in our city leadership doesn't want to be in our city leadership. They want to be governor. They want to go to DC. They want to go somewhere else. And so they don't want to make bold decisions that could rock the boat. We as a people understand inherently what those decisions are and should make them.
That's so fucking brilliant, all of it. And the reason why that's bold, Craig, is because what you're doing is, and there's a bunch of stuff about LA, like, and you just, you drew a line in the sand and said, you know what? It is a problem. Homelessness is a problem, but I can't eat the whole elephant. Like, I know there's people living on Fifth Street, I think is what it is, and all the things, but I can't eat the elephant. So I'm just drawing a line in the sand and saying, no more homeless people. Like, we're just going to stop new ones coming through. And it's not addressing the other part of the issue. And that's what makes it bold, because especially in LA, everybody will go, oh yeah, but we've got people out there right now and they're hungry and they're this and they're that. But you're stopping the bleeding on the way in. So you're addressing a big piece of it. And then your next step, of course, I'm sure would be like turning around and going, okay, how do we get resources that aren't like, here's some shampoo and hand sanitizer, but like, here's getting a job, here's food.
We can't just ignore people who are existing on the street, but the city likes to tout its statistic that they've removed 20,000 people off the streets. So then where did the existing 35,000 come from? Where does the 36% increase come from? It comes from new people. The answer is there are hundreds of private and public programs designed to get people off the streets. The problem is that people are coming onto the streets faster than we can get them off. So stop the bleeding and then help. Everyone who wants a job, who wants a place to live, should have one, right? And that's not, we're already spending the money. Skill sets, training, mental health resources, all of it. And the money's there. We're already spending the money. We're just spending it by lighting it on fire in the middle of the room.
By hiring a bunch of overpaid experts to tell us what they think.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We're spending, I'll take an example. They're building permanent housing, fresh permanent housing for homelessness at a cost of $450,000 a unit. I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
You can buy a, I don't know, 2,500 square foot home in Utah right now for 190,000.
It's absurd. Who's pricing this? And the answer is
is it on the coast?
Yeah, it's a beautiful bluff in Malibu. And that's the thing, it's not. It's just we're doing it wrong, right? Like, it's not.
You just layered in all the bureaucracies of the states, the unions, which are important, the unions and this and that and this and that, but you've made it so expensive that if you were to do it yourself, you'd pay $125.
Yeah, well, and even more than that, the thing is, people aren't asking for handouts. They're asking for an opportunity. They're asking for a STEP program. So give them a permanent residence and the resources and skills and things that they need. Let them get on their feet. Help them get on their feet. Those people are not, nobody's out there, the vast majority of people are not out there asking for a handout. They're asking for a chance. All we have to do is create the chance and finance the chance, not the permanent handout. And I think that's the beauty of the resourcefulness of these people and the dignity of who they are, is that if we create the opportunity for them to succeed, they will. We don't have to pay for it every step of the way. They just want the chance to be able to do it on their own.
Craig Greiwe, Los Angeles Mayor, 2022, 24. Listen,
Election
dude,
is 2022.
If not you, who? They ain't doing what you're talking about. You gotta step that up. So what do you do now day to day? By the way, he's a marketing genius to everyone that doesn't know. So as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking he could actually put this together. Marketing's half the package. And he is a marketing genius. I think he's got a quote about marketing and something about that too. Don't just do good work, be a good person.
Yeah.
I think you just walked through that. So you're living what you say. And so what are you doing today? Like, what's your weekly, what's a week for you, your work wise?
14 hours of meetings a day.
On Zoom, here.
Yeah, on Zoom. I think I spend my days working with clients, whether it's a startup or Verizon, and saying, what is your purpose for being in this world? What is your relationship to your consumer? Bold questions that they haven't asked themselves in 20 years. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And then how do we reverse engineer that so that you're controlling and engineering your future instead of responding to it? I think that's why, we look at a company like an organization like Girl Scouts, one of the most trusted brands in America, just incredibly filled with social good. And they've got 50 million adult alums that they wanted to deeper engage. And we looked at the marketplace, we looked at gaps in resources for adult women, and realized that although women are the vast majority of the vast majority of adults on the internet, that the content for them was the new floral prints for spring and celebrity gossip, but women wanted more. They wanted something from a trusted brand and a trusted resource that was going to acknowledge the grit and the difficulty, but also be practical, useful, and inspirational. So Girl Scouts, we came up with the idea and sold them in, and they've joined us in that they've created Circle Around, a new content site for adult women, a wholly owned for-profit subsidiary of the nonprofit where revenue goes back to fuel girls programs nationwide. It's that type of work that I do. It's, okay, what is our relationship? How are we doing good? How are we changing the world and adding an incredible value add product into the world?
I got the chills from you, which is really weird because I do energy, I love energy stuff, but
I'm a deeply spiritual person. And
yes, I normally get it only when I'm in the room, but all of that, like first of all, I'm signing up for your course. I like the way you think. And then, so you're just that's brilliant with the girls. I know I've said that 10 times during this conversation, but it's like, to do that with the Girl Scouts is brilliant. Well, you're exactly right. And they've never tapped into the grown-ups.
100%. And by the way, it doesn't matter who you are. When we look at Verizon over the last year of the pandemic, we started the pandemic, everyone was like, let's put these grants out there, hundreds of millions of dollars in this. And the government grants were important. The private grants and advertising credits from Facebook and Google, things like that. I'm not sure how impactful they were. What we started by doing was talking to thousands of small businesses and saying, what is it that you actually want beyond the PPP, beyond the help? And they said, I just want the ability to be able to connect more with my community. I believe and trust in my community, and my community is going to look out from me. And so we created program after program that helped thousands of small businesses across the country stay alive, pivot their businesses, thrive, and ultimately set the stage for a far more successful future with programs and resources they were actually asking for. That's my goal in life, is what do people need? Let's let people tell us what they need, and then let's reverse engineer how we give it to them.
Oh my gosh, I so want to have a conversation to tell you all the stuff that I need. So I believe you could make me a great checklist and be like, hey, this is what you're going to do. So one of my questions, and we've got to start wrapping up, but one of my questions was, what's a dream you didn't get or something you still dream of? But I kind of feel like you are achieving it every day in a sense.
I have a lot of irons in the fire, and I will tell you, it's tempting to look at my career, and I've had a blessed life and a blessed career growing up poor, living where I am now, working my way up, the jobs I've had, the mentors I've had, the people I've worked with. I'm truly blessed, but I have missed out on twice as many opportunities as I've gotten, and every single one of them cuts to the bone. And the answer, you can look at it and the answer is, it's generic to say, oh, well, failure is a part of it. I'm not saying, oh, well, you should embrace your failure. It sucks, right? Like there's no, oh, I'm going to turn this into lemons. The answer is, you're never going to have fewer failures. You need more shots on goal, more irons in the fire. When France won the World Cup, I think it was 2 or 3 times ago, it's because they had 5 times as many shots on goal as their opponent. They weren't the better team. They tried more. And that's, I think there's so many opportunities that I've wanted. I've wanted to run the Olympics since I was 5. So that's Casey Wasserman's job.
I'm going with you.
He's doing a great job at it. So
they're bringing in like skateboarding this year or something. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Or breakdancing. It's breakdancing. It's my favorite. So I want to spell your name out just so people know where they can find you. And it's Craig with a C.
Yep. And
then his last name is Greiwe, and it's spelled the least intuitive you can think of. It's Greiwe, Greiwe, website craiggreiwe.com. And what else? What's happening for you? Well, I'm going to follow you. So I don't know.
The world at Craig. If you On any social handle, it's much easier to remember than Greiwe. If you go to
Yes.
the world at Craig, the world according to Craig, or the world at Craig, how it's the world at Craig on Twitter, Instagram, and on anywhere you listen to podcasts, all available. It's me ranting and me interviewing some of the most amazing people I know. But that's where I live, and that's where I talk a lot.
Well, you become one of the most amazing persons I know.
That is a high compliment. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts and a lot of people you know, and that is truly an incredible compliment. Thank you.
Well, you walk your walk, and that's really important right now. You know, for me and COVID, we all hunkered down, and I was jet setting and running around, and all of my priorities got reset. And like right now, I'm sitting in the Mojave Desert in a 20-year-old camper trailer that I've been renovating with these hands. How long it's done? I don't know that I've ever done that project. It's taken me a week. I've painted it. I've hammered things, and I love it. And so it's a teeny tiny 32-foot square or 32-foot long space. And I'm finding the most joy here, that it's really interesting. I almost feel like COVID was somewhat of a chameleon for me. I had to peel back and step into something else. And I'm looking forward to knowing what the steps are.
That's amazing. I'm looking forward to watching it. That sounds like an incredible project. I would have driven a nail through my thumb by at least 10 times by accident.
So much fun though, dude. It's so much fun. I've just had a blast. I'm not sure. But my son is starting a business called Scorpion Depot. And so we have all these scorpions and snakes out here in the Mojave Desert. So that's a new hobby that I like. The snakes, the scorpions, but I do like the snakes.
That is a terrifying hobby, but I am all for every small business in America.
It's the best. Nobody's doing it but him. You're the best. I'm going to follow up with you and hopefully talk again soon. And I wish you the best. And I'm moving back to Los Angeles when you become mayor. I'm going to intern to do good in the city.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is an incredible privilege. And I'm so excited to be here and talk with you and all of this. You've been incredibly kind.
You're the best, dude.
Awesome.
Okay. Much love. Thanks everybody for listening. You can find me at stormysimon.com. Find Craig at
the world at Craig.
I got so tied up with pronouncing your last name correctly. I can't remember your handles. The world at Craig. Give Lunch at Stormy a listen, subscribe, give us some stars, and have a great day. And we'll see you next time. Yay. Aww.